Greetings and salutations and welcome to today's feature presentation. A relatively in-depth look, and by relatively in-depth I mean kind of in the shallows look at the relatively new MMO Black Desert Online. Now, I'm one of those people who kind of dips into a variety of MMOs and never settles. I've convinced myself it's because I'm looking for the right thing to sink my entire life into, although it may just well be that I don't like MMOs in general. It could be a reality, so bear that in mind. I've been playing this game. I didn't put any money in, so my opinion is not judged by cost efficiency, but I've been playing this game for about a week now. My 7-day code should expire sometime tomorrow, I would think. And, it's alright. But more on how alright it is later. Let's go through this step by step, shall we? We'll start with, obviously, the first thing that you encounter within playing an MMO, and that's the story, because you have to sit through a usually lengthy cutscene, although in this case, not particularly lengthy, just very, very loud. The story doesn't grip me very, very much. Now, I have to say, I haven't been paying a great deal of attention to the dialogue. There's plenty to read, as always. There's lots of side quests. Each side quest has its own little story. There's lots of primary quests. Every primary quest has its own little story. Like, everything makes sense. But the gist of the overarching plot, at least during the early development stages of your character, there is a demon inside you, a black power, and that's bad. As a direct result of you having a demon inside of you and an arrangement with that demon, you don't have a memory. You have amnesia. You kind of, like, when you first take control of your character, you wake up in a stable next to some horses with a demon going, hey, this is how you do things. Oh, wow, you really don't remember what our contract is? Well, I won't mention, I'll just keep mentioning that we've got an arrangement, an agreement, but I'm never actually going to tell you what it is. I'm sure it comes up later, and as you progress through certain points, certain key parts of the story, you bump into locations containing more dark power, and that fuses with your demon to make it grow. It starts as a ball with 2 little red eyes. It's kind of adorable. I named it Steve. Then, it suddenly has teeth. Most recently, it's got teeth and starting to grow arms. And it's extremely proud of its teeth. To be fair, if my teeth were the size of small tombstones, I'd probably be proud of them as well. But Steven, you wander around, and all the characters that you meet, particularly the ones that you tell, like, hey, I've got a demon inside me, which is most everyone, because it seems to be that everywhere you go, someone has a way of sensing dark power. And as you're full of the stuff, their means of sensing dark power seem to just vibrate or go off whenever you're nearby. Which, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And they're all like, we should really get this demon out of you. We should do that thing. But invariably, your demon gets stronger at just the moment that someone is like, oh wow, that you meet someone, I should say, that says, oh well, I know a way to get rid of your demon, but it's grown too powerful and now my method won't work. Maybe you should try speaking to this person. And then you do a bunch of stuff to get to the level where it's appropriate to go to that place. And oh look, you now have a stronger demon inside of you, and he can't help. That seems to be the gist that I'm getting. Again, I didn't read a lot of it. And then, finally, you make it to the first, major city, and everyone couldn't care less about your demon because there's political insanity going on. All ramblings aside, there is a story. It does exist. If any of these things interest you, Black Desert Online might be a thing you want to do. I don't know. I don't really know how you think, which is, I suppose, why I'm going over everything. So that's the story aside. The next major component of any game, in fact, in my personal opinion, the most important component of any game, is the gameplay. And as this is a combat-orientated action MMO, the combat is the gameplay. Or it is the most of it. It's what you spend the most of your time doing. The combat is great. It's not the very, very best, like no one ever was, but it is very, very good. It could be boiled down to hotkey MMO if you wanted to do that. It can very, very much be reduced to you push button and do skill. But they obfuscate that quite cleverly by having... I mean, this is default UI. You can probably adjust the UI, but you've only got the 10 quick action slots. However, that's not important because every skill that you learn for your class has a key combination involving left mouse, right mouse, Q, W, E, and I think maybe R, ASD, F, Shift, I think Alt is used, and I know V is used, probably the lower portion of the left hand of the keyboard. All these buttons are used. For instance, WF and SF were a knockback attack. They were the same attack with a different emphasis. If I SF, I blast them with dark energy, because that's what the sorceress is all about, and knock myself back. If I WF, I blast them with the same attack of dark energy, and they get knocked back, or they get the most of it. We both get knocked back. It's a fairly powerful blast. Left mouse button, on the other hand, was my basic attack. It just slash with like dark claws or whatever. And if I hold S while doing it, I power it up. It becomes a different ability, but it looks very, very similar and is essentially the strong version where you, instead of gaining mana, you spend mana to deal a lot more damage. F on its own was a series of kicks, which I thought was really, really good. Any combination of the WADs, no, just the ADS, W wasn't included, and Shift, like a quick tap of Shift, would result in a dodge, which I later leveled up into a teleport dodge, because my class is all about blinking around a lot and moving around attacks, because every stat is maxed out except defense, according to those weird polygon shapes that indicate with large arrows what you're good at. The only thing the sorceress is apparently bad at is defense, and so don't even try. And to be fair, I did get killed by a bee, a small bee, at the level of 15. I felt that was somewhat humiliating, but it turns out backstabs from almost any damage source do like 4 times damage or something insane like that. Which brings me to another point. Most abilities, not all, but most abilities have modifiers that you can utilize to maximize your damage output. For instance, my ranged attack as a sorceress was a bunch of dark energy blasts, which again gained me mana. That's my basic ranged attack. It was bound to right mouse button. I could upgrade it if I wanted to. I never actually got around to doing that. It had bonus damage on downed enemies. It's just called a down attack, meaning that if your opponent has been knocked on the ground and is in the process of getting up, you will deal like 2 times or 3 times damage with this attack. I don't know the exact specific numbers, but I know that you get a massive damage boost. So you can look to chain your attacks into combos to maximize your damage potential. Similarly, most attacks, and I believe all attacks, have a damage bonus on backstab attacks. They're just called back attacks, but hitting your opponent in the back. That same rule applies to you, meaning that there's a lot of moving around and positioning complexity to the combat, which I thought was really, really interesting. There's a lot of really powerful player-centered AoE abilities in the arsenal of the sorceress, but I almost never used them perhaps the way they were intended, air quotes, because I didn't want to be in a position where I was surrounded. If I was in that position, I was already going to get boned, because you can't, at least not easily, travel through enemies, particularly in combat. Like, you can travel through other players while you're wandering the roads, but as you're fighting your opponents, you can't move through them, which is a massive, massive aspect of the whole situation, because I can't just go, well, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to be behind you, so I'm going to do my sidestep attacks and murder my way around your side, because if you've got someone else attacking me from the side, sure, I'll hit both of you with the sidestep attacks, but I won't actually go anywhere. Angling your camera became very important, which is not necessarily the easiest thing to focus on in combat, because you mostly want to be looking at everything. But Every aspect of the combat felt really, really solid. I can't complain at all. In fact, I'd thoroughly recommend you go and look. I'm sure there's dozens, hundreds, thousands even videos of various classes, and even just in the combat tutorial, because all the combos and all the new abilities that you'd learn came with little videos. This is the button press combination of how you do it, and this is what it looks like when you do it, so you know when you're doing it right. And similarly, you get the same sort of thing when the game starts teaching you basic combos, not just button press combinations, but actual this move, follow this move, follow this move. Now, as far as I can tell, that sort of combination system doesn't actually award you any sort of bonus unless one move benefits greatly from the status effects applied by the other. I didn't really get into it. It seemed very, very freeform, and that's what I really, really liked. Mostly I just focused on, I'm using this ability under this situation. For the majority of my fights, I would focus on my feet, using my kicking abilities, and then if I started to run out of mana or stamina, I'd move into other things. If I was running out of mana more, I would move into my auto attacks and my ranged auto attacks, as I'd call them. They're not, in fact, in any way auto, but they're left mouse button and right mouse button. If I'm running out of stamina, because, kicking, you actually used both once I got it upgraded to Shadow Kick, which sounded badass, but looked just like the same kick. That's what it was. It was just a better version that cost mana. Once that happened, I also started, or rather, when I ran out of stamina, I'd use my empowered attacks. If I was in trouble, I'd knock enemies away with the abilities that I've mentioned, and if I was low on health, I'd try and find a massive mob. I had a chain lightning / lifesteal ability that was just amazing. Absolutely baller. I can thoroughly recommend the Sorceress, but I think all the classes handle key press very much the same, but mechanically, thematically, very, very much different, I'm sure. It seems very, very solid and the primary focus of the game, which I like. So the combat gets a great big A+. Perhaps best MMO combat I've seen. Yeah, no, I can't think of an MMO that I prefer the combat of. That's actually an actual MMO, because I have a very clear distinction on what is a massively multiplayer online game and what is a multiplayer online game. Warframe, I don't care what you say to me, you are not an MMO, you are just an MO. That's not a shameful thing. Be okay with it. But I digress massively. Combat, good. If you like this sort of thing, Black Desert Online. To be entirely clear, it does not in any way come off as what some action MMOs do, in which you've got a bunch of basic, you've got light attacks and heavy attacks, and you can do your regular brawler gameplay combos, spectacle fighter stuff, but it's very, very basic, and you mix it up with hotkeyed abilities. It is not that at all. Moving in the same sort of area, we come with character creation and progression. Everything is interesting when we get to character progression. So let's just look at character creation. Conceptually, character creation is exactly what you would expect from any Asian MMO. It is maximum customization. Personally, I don't need to choose exactly where each lock of my hair sits, but if that's your bag, feel free. There's enough time, there's space for 3 hours here. This is like EVE online levels of customization, only you actually get to see your character and not just take a photo of them. So that's really cool, but you don't customize in character creation in any way your character's attributes or stats. Fairly standard MMO fare. I mean, I like to be different in some small way, perhaps to the next person beside me, but that's okay. But then you start leveling up, and here's where things get interesting, because level ups, as far as I can tell, you don't get experience from questing. At least from most quests. Some quests, particularly lots of quests in the early learning how to play the game, those quests give you experience, but as you progress, you get less and less actual experience as rewards from quests. That's very, very different. Instead, you get, now correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who actually play Black Desert Online, instead of getting experience points, you get contribution points. Contribution points build up towards a bar which you can use to buy things and do things. I didn't get that far. Turns out you need to be more than about level 20 to buy stuff and do stuff with contribution points. But as I understand it, they're involved in the renting of houses system, which we'll get to eventually. There's a lot to go on with here. Experience that is related to levels is instead predominantly earned by beating the snot through things. However, there is two not experience bars. Okay, look. In the top left corner of the screen, which you'll see at any point in time during this video, because this audio and video is of course recorded separately. In the top left corner, you'll see 3 yellow bars, and across the top of the screen, there's just a 1 yellow bar that goes all the way across the top of the screen. All the way across the top of the screen, that is your experience bar. Anytime you get experience points, that goes up. When it fills up, it goes back to the start. You gain 1 character level. There is, as I understand it, a cap character level of 50 or 55, not sure which. I'm gonna go with 55 for the time being. Increasing your level gives you a small quantity, I think 1 skill point per level up, and it unlocks new skills. Each skill has a level requirement. You need to be X level before you can learn X skill, or perhaps more accurately, you need to be X level before you can learn X skills rank 3. The auto attack, Dark Claws, or whatever the nonsense it was called, again, not actually an auto attack, left mouse button, that had something like 9 different basic improvements. And so every few levels, I'd get the next one when I met the skill point requirement. But here's the thing, the skill point requirement is huge. How could you ever meet that sort of requirement? Except that you get skill points from so many other things. There are some skill points awarded as rewards for quests. Separately, you have I don't know what they call it. I'm going to go with combat expertise. It is the top of the 3 shorter yellow bars. That is a bar that fills up with combat experience only. It only fills up with the experience you get from beating the snot out of things. Namely, the higher level they are in relation to you, the better gain you get. And that fills up, and every time it fills out, you get 1 skill point. So you can grind skill points a lot faster, as far as I can understand, than you can grind levels. Now, not too dramatically so, and it means that there is enough skill points available because that bar just keeps going. It just keeps going. It keeps getting harder, but it keeps going. You can eventually unlock every skill and every upgrade for all your skills for your character. You can have a max level person, and you can have a max level person who is maxed out. Very, very dramatic difference as far as I can tell. In fact, I'd go to say game-changing difference, because a person who's just hit max level is going to have a few combos, probably the combos that they like, available to them and maxed out. Maybe not even all of the moves that they really, really rely upon, but one of them maxed out and everything else really close. Whereas the other person has every option in their arsenal at any one point in time. They get attacked and they need to deal with it a specific way, they can do that, whereas the recently maxed person can't react in every way possible. Odds are they know every skill, and damage is predominantly based not on the skills level, but on your AP, attack power. Yes, so it's not a significant downside to not be fully leveled out in an ability, but in some areas it really, really is. The left mouse button skill for the Sorceress Darkness Claws, whatever, you're seeing plenty of it on the screen in front of you, that regenerates mana as you swing. It is in fact the fastest form of regenerating mana. Even outside of combat, it will take entire days to get a full mana bar back, whereas you can just slap the snot out of a low-level bunny and get a lot of mana back fairly quickly. That mana return is exactly tied to the level of that ability. It starts at 3, and increases by... Actually, I'm not sure it is a mathematical increase. I know that at level 2 of that ability, it increases by... It restores 5 mana per swing, and then 8 mana per swing, and I don't know beyond that. But as that move and your right mouse button ability, they are your 2 core, this is how I restore my mana. thoroughly recommend at least focusing on one of those. If you don't have either of those maxed out, or if you've only taken them so far and you could be taking them further, you can find yourself hard limited in what you can do because you simply can't afford it, or can't afford it as regularly as someone that you're fighting would be. And I suspect the PvP is the primary focus of the endgame here. Mechanics lead into that. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that kill things, get skill points make you better, objectively so. The other two bars, they're more of a mystery to me. One of them is the contribution points, which is predominantly earned by doing quests, but there's a bunch of other ways you can do it. As I understand it, it is used to purchase houses. Houses are your own little instance that you can go in, and it's actually a house. You can live inside it. I'm sure you can store things there for freezies. It's a house. I bet you can decorate it. I can almost guarantee you can invite your friends inside, but only in small groups because you can't fit everything inside your house. And every region, every little town has like apartments for rent. As far as I understand it, you rent those with contribution points. Then there's that last little bar. The bar in between the combat experience at the top and the contribution points at the bottom. This last bar is more or less a labor point system, as I understand it. Now, I might be wrong, there might be labor points separately, but this, as far as I can tell, is the amount of things you can do. Predominantly, at least as far as I've noticed, you actually use it on conversations. Again, I don't know if this is the bar you use for actually like harvesting stuff. I'm pretty sure it is. We're gonna assume that it is for now. You get 1 point every 3 minutes, up to a cap. Once that cap is done, you don't get any more until you start spending them, sucker. And when you start spending them, they again start regenerating at 1 every 3 minutes. Predominantly, you spend them on conversations. You need to have a certain amount of points, usually in the vicinity of 8, although depending on the conversation, less. And that unlocks a conversation. Conversations are not quests. Like you can go up and talk to a person about a thing, and get them to tell you to do stuff. But each NPC, or not quite all of them, most NPCs have conversations in air quotes that you can have, at the end of which you will gain knowledge. And as I understand how the system works, knowledge equals experience points. It also equals background lore for this giant freaking... It's an encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia of game information. A lot of it's lore. Most of it's lore. I mean, that's kind of what it's there for. You unlock that lore by you spending those points. Again, I'm pretty sure you can also spend those points to chop down trees and crap, but at this point in time, I've not been doing much of that, because by the time you're level 20, now, I'm assuming the game would let you do these things prior to this if you, when willing to actually explore or read the dialogue and buy the prerequisite items. But I've only had one quest which has resulted in me getting a gathering tool. I can now chop down trees, hooray. So you can probably spend that there as well. And looking at it from the perspective of someone who played Ahrtgames fairly substantially, got to max level, realized I hate the game, all my friends quit, so I quit as well. It's a lot more generous of a system. You spend them regularly, to be fair, and in fact, in some sittings of playing the game, I've spent nearly all of my allotment. And this is without going around gathering resources. So if I was one of those people, I'd probably be able to spend all of them fairly quickly. But it also replenishes extraordinarily fast compared to other systems. I don't remember exactly how much Ahrtgames was, as I seem to recall it being like you get 1 point every 5 minutes, but you need 50 to do something, or something insane like that. And most of Ahrtgames' system was about keeping you logged in and online. This game, I'm pretty sure, doesn't care so much. And considering the caps at like 32, one point every 3 minutes, you just go slap the shit out of some things. Get yourself some combat experience and skill points. Come back. Oh look, you've got a full bar. It's not even restrictive. I don't know. So I mean, that's cool. Moving on to the last and most boring aspect of like character management. you've got an inventory. It is a real thing. Your inventory increases in capacity. Like it's got a finite number of slots, but many of those things stack almost indefinitely. In fact, there are items in the game that do stack indefinitely. You can keep piling up on them. Finite number of slots though, so I mean, that's a bit of a drag. But the finite number of slots increases progressively as you complete quests. Yay. In fact, some of those quests stop rewarding you if you do all of them because you reach a maximum capacity. And as far as I can tell, the maximum capacity is fairly large at about 4 times the size of your initial bag. On top of that, though, there's also a weight mechanic. Every single item in your inventory has weight, so you can't be carrying too much junk. However, the game also encourages you carrying junk because all the junk items, from the broken fangs that wolves inevitably drop to the feathers that are dropped by all the bird creatures, all these things have an exchange. There's a specific person somewhere in the world, and you can get the game to show you how just by looking at the inventory item the right way, pushing the right buttons. But there's a specific person in the world who's like, give me stacks of that thing in quantity X. For most of the most generic loot, it's give me 50 wolf fangs or 50 bear butts or whatever. It seems like a fetch quest, only instead of a fetch quest, it's a shit ton of money. I don't know how much in terms of like actual endgame trading money, but by the end of my 1 to 20, level 1 to 20 stint, by the end of that stint, I had about 20, maybe 30,000 coins. It was 5,000 coins if I could put together 50 of the fangs. That's 100 wolves dead. 75 is probably more accurate. 75 wolves, plus a quick walk to the nearest person who hates wolves, and I roll in a portion of money comparable in size to the amount of money I made getting from level 1 to 20. So, in the small quantities of coins, at least, shit can be good. You can make a lot of money by beating the snot out of things, and instead of selling them wholesale, selling them or exchanging them, as it is called, to a specific person. Now, I didn't do any actual exchanging. I think I did it once as part of a quest, actually. But like, it wasn't something I was big into because I was mostly interested in progressing as quickly as possible, staying on the level curve, progressing through the quests, getting as close as I could to endgame so I could actually understand the depth of the combat. And it was in this recording that you're watching now where I actually finally, it was that day that I grasped that moving to the side instead of just wailing on them and letting them wail on me, much smarter, much better thing to do. Definitely do that. I started to feel like I was really enjoying myself, and that actually changed my opinion, because at first I was like, it's good, it feels good, but it's not great. Now, once I actually fully understood the depth to which I could move around and understood the mechanics of backstabbing a lot better, I realized that the combat's really, really good. We've drifted back onto the combat again. I'm sorry. We shall continue. So that's your character. And of course you have items. As far as I can tell, items either give you specific stat increases, MP, HP, physical damage, magical damage, range damage, probably some other attributes, but for the most part, everything seems to fall under the blanket umbrella of, is it AP, attack power, and DP, defense power. If you're wearing it, it adds to your DP. If it's in your hand, it adds to your AP. General rule. Items also seem to increase your speed, which is very, very different. Most MMOs don't like you fiddling with speed. Your speed rarely changes unless under the effect of specific buffs. This game is like, you can run faster if you want. In fact, I'm getting all sorts of lost in my head here because there's a topic I now really want to cover. It's the fact that you can level up your running. You have a finite quantity of stamina. As an early level person, that finite quantity is very, very small. You can run for about a meter. And if you've got any sort of lag, running causes a desync. Really, really irritating. You rubber band like a mofo. Like, that's your sprinting mechanic. But the more you sprint, the better you get at sprinting. You get a larger pool of stamina and you get an increased speed. When I was first riding a donkey from town to town, I was riding on my donkey at full tilt, and the donkey can sprint for days, although its sprint speed is fairly slow. I was outdone by someone sprinting from town to town. I cannot help but imagine that they are a fairly high-level player, because I couldn't sprint for more than a few meters, and they weren't just walking. Like, they seemed to be going full tilt, meaning that you can level up to a fairly substantial degree. Just run instead of ride a horse, although I suspect horses are substantially faster than people. From this point onward, we're drifting into areas that I don't understand to a great extent. Things that I've heard about, things that I've conjectured, things that I've just rumor and hearsay, but some of it's probably backed by the fact that I do know one guy who, in the same span of time that I got to level 16, no, it wasn't even that. I was level 14, he was level 44. He'd been playing a day or two longer than me, but still, that guy's gone ham. He loves it. And I hope he watches this video to provide some insight in the comment section, but I can't expect him to sit through all this rambling nonsense. Anyway, the world. The stuff that I know not much about. The mechanics outside of combat. Here's the things where people are going to have some problems, and I'll try and list them fairly quickly. Number 1, there is one skill respec acquired at level 40. It is the only time you will get a full respec of your character's skill points. You can get enough skill points to get everything eventually, but this is the one chance you get to go, hey, I actually think I want to try something completely different. Other than that, there are partial skills respecs available. I don't know what the difference between a partial and a full skill respec are, so I really can't provide anything on that point. I don't know what that means. It's very interesting, because normally that's something you'd find in a cash shop, and this game does have a cash shop. It's not a subscription game. It's a buy in and then keep playing, but you might want to try our cash shop sometime game. But I don't think they actually do sell a full skill respec in the cash shop. I think they just expect you to just keep leveling until you cap out. Seems reasonable, I guess. But it is what it is. The next thing, and this is where I actually have an opinion, there is no fast travel. None whatsoever. If you need to go from place A to place B, you walk or you visit the nearest stable and you get them to deliver your donkey from the stable where you deposited your donkey, which costs money, and then you get them to revive it if it was injured or killed last time you were out, and then you ride to the location, and then you leave your donkey behind, and your donkey stays where you left it, and either gets killed and eaten by wolves, or you forget where it is and need to pay someone to bring it in for you to the stable, in which case it will act as if it was stabbed and killed and beaten. I think. I don't actually know. I don't know if I lost my donkey or it died. And then you get on your donkey, and you set your destination, and you engage auto walk, which is conveniently bound to the button T, and you let your game walk for you, and it takes a lot longer of a path than you would take. You could do with a better GPS system, I'm sure. And you travel from place to place, and if you want, you can hold shift while doing the auto walk, and you can look around while doing the auto walk and inventory manage to a small extent, but you can't have conversations with your inner demon, and you can't do many things while riding. I think there's horseback combat, but I couldn't get it to work on the donkey. This has some interesting problems. Playing with friends is difficult if you're 2 different level. For instance, you're level 14. And your friend is level 40 something. It will take you around 15 minutes, depending on where that friend was located, for him to get to you on his amazing god horse, or whatever it is he's using at the time. That's a long time waiting for a friend to rock up. Incidentally, you also need to be in physical proximity to add someone to your friends list. So actually meeting my friend in-game, yes, we were on Skype, so that helped, but it took a substantial amount of time. He needed to figure out exactly where I was. I needed to figure out exactly where he was. It's kind of crazy. The whole thing's kind of crazy. The whole idea of no fast traveling is really interesting. Ahrtgames did it to a small extent in that you couldn't fast travel while transporting trade goods, and this game does have a trade goods system. I didn't delve into it much too low level. But it is there, and I suspect it's a similar system. If you get a frickin' wagon, you load a bunch of crap into your frickin' wagon, and then you ride that wagon very slowly across the countryside, making yourself a giant emergent content hotspot where people are going to try and ambush you, and people might try and help, like, follow you to defend you if things go wrong, because everyone likes money being in their guild and not in other guilds. Nonsense like that is all a real thing. It is quite nice. Quite nice. But having no fast travel out of combat, out of trading, like, at all, it puts an artificial time barrier. Now, as an MMO player, I'm sure you're like, I have infinite time to spend on my game, but I'm not much of an MMO player, and so I'm like, I don't want to spend my entire life walking across the continent to get to the place where my friends are doing things. You need to, like, follow along each other a lot. And it's interesting. It separates people, which I think is exactly the point. This ties into the fact that you can actually claim parts of the world, like towns and such, for your guild, which again ties into another mechanic, the guild war system. So I think sort of endgame-ish ideas, guilds will be predominantly regions. Like, one guild will own this town, this city, and this outpost, or however much territory it is that guild owns, and predominantly their players will stay within that region unless they're traveling to trade. Trade's worth a lot of money, but they'll have to go through regions controlled by rival guilds that might be in guild wars with them and want to beat them up. It's really interesting conceptually, but it means, and this is all conjecture, it means potentially the endgame content, you experience predominantly one area. Almost exclusively, one zone will be your guild's spot. And I'm sure independent players will have a lot more freedom in that regard, but people will probably be having to defend their towns, which means that you're going to have to be nearby in case your town gets attacked so that you can move to defend your town. Like, a rival guild isn't going to wait for you to be ready before they attack you. They're just going to attack you when they're ready. So you need to be ready at all times. That seems to be how I would set it up. As if I was running a guild, I'd want almost all my guilds to be like, this is the place that we defend. This is our turf. And I like that concept, but I don't like the concept of not actually seeing the entire vast world. And from what little I've seen of the map, the world is huge. Not god tier, not like Azeroth or something insane, but like, it's a large map. A very large map. Another interesting mechanic of the open world, the game has dungeons, right? It's an MMO, of course it has dungeons. It's got dungeons and raids, places where you go to beat the shit out of things, and get better loot than you get in other places. Crazy concept incoming. They're open world. The dungeons exist within the world. They just have the same sort of enemy spawn system as everywhere else, as I understand it. And yeah, sure, there might be a boss at the end. You might be complex mechanics to get to that boss, and then complex mechanics when you're fighting that boss. But that boss is also in the world, meaning you can be in the middle of a raid and have a group of other players come in behind you and go, "Thanks for opening the path, assholes," and then flip your shit so that you're face down in the mud and they get all the epic loot because they were bigger and tougher and more prepared. I don't know to what extent the PvP is open world because there's no multiple faction system, so I don't know if you can just go and beat people up. If there's specific PvP zones where you can just go and beat anybody up. If you can initiate fights with people who have not initiated a fight back at you. I don't know how the rules work there. There might be the ability to be a bandit, or it might be purely restricted to the guild on guild stuff. I really, there's so much I don't know of endgame content, and that's the problem with looking at MMOs is if you've only got 7 days, you ain't got time to see what the game is really about. Which I suppose brings me into my last topic for the evening. Oh my god, it gets grindy. I was level 10 in 5 minutes. That video is on my channel. You can go take a look at it. It is casual. It's one of my casual days, but just type in casual Black Desert Artima, and I'm sure you'll find it. Give me views. Give me views. Please, please. Getting to level 20 took the rest of the week. I didn't play a lot that week. I've had a lot going on. That's more of an excuse than a reason. But in the multiple hours that I continued playing, I did not get from level 10 to level 20. It would take even more time to get from level 20 to level 30, etc., etc., etc. The game is grindy as hell. I don't know what else to say on the topic. I really don't. Okay, so in summation, combat, really, really good. Endgame world mechanics, questionable. Could be good, could be what you're into, might not be. Maybe a lot of effort required to get to that point to find out. Graphics, I suppose I should mention the graphics. I hope you like Pop-In. If you don't like Pop-In, if popping makes you want to vomit out your internal organs, go elsewhere, please, for the sake of the carpet. Story? Nah, it's alright. So we've got a mixed bag here. I suppose now, having summed everything up, what is there? A mixed bag of content and a price tag for said mixed bag. That price tag is $30. $30 gets you the standard edition. This is $30 in the United States of the USD variety, not the Australian dollar, as I am used to dealing with, so it will cost substantially more than that. I don't know the euro. I didn't play on the EU servers. I believe they are different, separate, as you would expect. There are no Oceanic servers on a side note, so don't even... Like, Australia, you can play, but there will be latency. There will be lag, you will notice. My friend said he didn't. My friend is wrong. Or, you can pay $50 and get a free horse. And a free pet of your choice. Not even sure how good the horse is. I know it's a tier 3. I don't know what that means. That's it. That is Black Desert Online. Does it? I'm not gonna say if it's worth the money. For me, it's not, because at the end of my period of playing it, I don't want to play it anymore. I've got no inclination, no strong desire to keep going. I don't care enough. I don't dislike it. In fact, I had reasonable fun while playing it. But I haven't engaged in any way that makes me want to keep going. So I honestly can't say if it's worth the money. For me, it's not. But if it is your sort of thing, do try it out. If you can find someone, everyone who's bought it has 7-day keys. I believe you get 2 7-day keys as the Get a Horse edition, and 1 7-day key as a standard edition. You should be able to get your hands on a chance to play the game. Definitely do that if you're interested. Don't necessarily commit until after those days are done, but there's a chance. There is a chance that you can try this game out, particularly now, and give it a go. It might be your thing, and I wish you luck. I hope you enjoy it, because it seems like a reasonably well-made game. I just don't want to play it. Thank you all for listening to my ramble. I hope you've enjoyed the footage in the background of me playing the game that I am rambling about, and I hope you have a wonderful night. My name is Ahrtgames, and this has been Black Desert Online.
Have you come to take part in putting the rebels down?
Traitors don't get mercy. Am I right?
If you own a horse, you can safely leave it here. Ahrtgames wasn't actually the one who started the rebellion.
The stuff here may not be sophisticated, but it looks pretty good to my eyes.
the bounty? The rebels are right there in front of you. You. Yeah, you. Can you tell Crewhorn that Tito needs a vacation?
Al-Rundi must be punished. If you help us, we'll offer you a nice reward.
Al-Rundi is our only hope. Al-Rundi. We are suffering because of that bizarre monster. The military doesn't protect us. There are lots of peasants like us. They all need our help. Don't misunderstand, Al-Rundi.
Were you attacked by scarecrows on your way here? The wheat from this farm can feed an entire nation. Plywood can be made with a collection of planks. Were you attacked by scarecrows on your way here? The wheat from this farm can feed an entire nation.
Al-Rundi is our only hope. Al-Rundi.
If you own a horse, you can safely leave it here. I was thinking about an old friend for a moment.
come to take part in putting the rebels down? Al-Rundi must be punished.
Traitors don't get mercy. Am I right? Al-Rundi was too stubborn. Don't you agree? Do you want to collect the bounty? The rebels are right